Well, it's estimated that 3 billion people around the globe do not have access to reliable broadband service, and companies like Verizon, our parent company, and AT&T are now racing to provide 5G service. But I guess where does that leave everyone who can't get on the internet yet? Jessica O. Matthews is the CEO of Uncharted Power, and she may have a solution, and she joins us now to talk about that. So, you are in the power business.
Yes.
What do you make of the 5G race as it's currently discussed here in the U.S.? And from where you guys sit, does that fit into your strategy at all?
I think that the 5G race is exciting, but a bit unnecessarily siloed, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of exciting innovations that people talk about, and they're going to continue to talk about them and not actually implement them until we realize that we don't have the foundational infrastructure that we need to actually deploy these solutions. We saw this with IoT as well. Everyone's talking about sensors, everyone's talking about smart city development, but if you don't figure out how you're going to bring sustainable, reliable power to the device edge, bridging the gap between, the kind of archaic infrastructure that we have and actually getting to those sensors in these phones and making sure they always have the power that they need, not to mention the actual environment for that technology to exist. If you think about what happens when you leave your cell phone out in the sun, it stops working.
Yeah. Or the freezing
cold.
cold.
Or the freezing
Yeah,
cold.
you're like, what?
So that means that you can't just put these things out there. The same thing goes for 5G. How are we going to power these antennas? They can't be 5 to 10 miles apart the way cell sites are. They have to be every 30 meters or less. And so what we've done at Uncharted Power is think about how to build an alternative standard for really just infrastructure. In particular, power, because we were designing this as a global solution for the billions of people who don't have access to the infrastructure we know of, and in particular the, just under 1 billion people who still don't have access to power in the global south. And similar to the same way that we saw leapfrogging in communication infrastructure from landlines to mobile cell phones, we devised a solution that allows us to decentralize and create essentially microgrids in the ground that can be leveraged to bridge that gap between the infrastructure edge and the device edge and provide power for things like 5G and the IoT.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit just on exactly
yes.
what Uncharted Power is. First, Disney is an investor?
Disney is an investor, yes.
So, okay, these grids, what is the timeline for this? Is it happening right now?
So right now we actually are developing some projects incognito, some projects domestically, some projects in the tri-state. And so it's quite an exciting thing because, again, at the end of the day, the concept has always been, how do we build infrastructure better to bridge the access gap? Because there is an access gap. It's not just about the international situation. Here in the United States, 39% of rural Americans do not have access to broadband, right? So there is an access gap, but also really create a foundation for equitable technological innovation with the IoT and with 5G. And so yes, we essentially have taken all of our IP. We have about 11 patents and patents pending, covering different solutions in energy generation, transmission, and storage. And we leverage that to build essentially a toolkit of hardware and software solutions that allows us to build this infrastructure in the ground and start to provide these services.
So in 5 years, where do you want Uncharted Power to be? How large are your ambitions, I suppose, as a company? I think personally, I can tell your ambitions are quite large, but for this specific venture, kind of where do you see this business going?
Well, it didn't always start out that way. Just last month was Women's Month, so it is what it is. I have to highlight that a lot of times women, we don't actually think that big. So what I'm saying right now is not because I'm dreaming delusionally, it's because we have the numbers and the stats, and half my investors think that we should already have IPO'd based on what we've accomplished, and I tend to be more conservative. I truly believe that once we can actually go kind of out of stealth mode and show people that we've built infrastructure that reduces upfront costs, that decreases the long lead development times, and that can provide all of these services that you need for kind of the future of development, that alternative standard will be the thing that people switch to. We still have landlines, right? I don't have one. Most millennials don't, but I hear people do, and so I believe in 5 years you're going to see that switch, because at the end of the day, it's the technology that makes it easier to invest in this. And when you can push the dollars towards things, you'll push the people as well.
All right, Jessica Matthews, CEO of Uncharted Power. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.